Hey, on today's video we're going to do something pretty, I think unique to this channel, something I've not really wanted to delve into before, but I think I'm ready to take a crack at it. So I'm going to make this a 2 or 3 part video. I'm not exactly sure what, it depends on how long this actually goes, because if most of you know I don't usually use a script, I just spit, so let's just see where this takes us, and that'll determine how many parts this goes into. So what I wanted to do is kind of have a little of an open discussion talking about my straight up opinions and desires regarding the fighting games and how they stack up. Now we're going to be taking a look at the main fighting games, especially the ones that I usually talk about on my channel. So this doesn't include offshoots like Injustice or other fighters like the ArcSeas games and things of that nature, because that gameplay style we're just going to pretty much lump into, I guess, the Street Fighter style. So, you know, the forward circle quarter stuff. But so we're going to be taking a look at Street Fighter V Collector's Edition, specifically. We're going to be looking at Tekken 7, we're going to be looking at Soul Calibur 6, and we're also going to be looking at Dead or Alive. Now these are, in my opinion, the most popular of the fighting game genre, the ones that are going to the most. These are also the ones with the longest history, so again, we have a little bit of a competition between all of them. Usually depends on like who's standing for what, but I mean, the vast majority of the time it depends on like which game plays which way, is which game you like. Now the reason I'm not including any of the other fighters is because they usually only have like 1 or 2 games. Of course, we're not talking about something like Guilty Gear or something like that. Most ArcSeas games can be put together. They do have different mechanics involved most of the time, but for the sake of this argument, we're just going to take a look at the main fighters who have the longest running history and kind of pit them head to head and see where they match up and see where they land. Alright, so I think I want to do this in 3 parts. I think the first part, it'd be better to get into 2 games at a time, so we'll do like, this is in accordance, the reason this is coming up, let's just get there, okay? I've seen a lot of people say that they play certain games for certain reasons. And people in the comment section have also been like, especially my last video, well, this game does this, and this game does this, and this game does this. Kind of talking about how the functionality of certain aspects of the games are better, and I think it's good to like break those up into parts of to what they like overall the feel. And now this is going to be personally for me more of an opinion kind of piece. Especially with my history with the games, you may have a different experience. I'm not discounting that. I'd love to hear about it in the comment section down below, but this is literally just from me. So we're going to take a look at 3 different distinctive things, and we're going to take a look at all those games based on those. The first is going to be story. Alright, so the story, we're going to lump in a single player experience with story, so modes that are like alongside of that, because in my opinion, it's one of the most important aspects besides the gameplay mechanics, because you want to have a feeling, you want to connect to your characters, you want to see where their adventure takes them, you want to kind of relate to them in a way. So I think it's important to have developed characters that you stick with through these times, because when people pick mains, it's usually not just based on mechanics, it's also based on the character's personality and what they've gone through and things of that nature. The second part we're going to be covering is going to be battle mechanics, like how the game plays, like the defensive tactics, how good is the offense, things of that nature. And then last, we're going to talk about online experience and gimmicks. So gimmicks being like, character creation mode, specifically Street Fighter, or character customization mode in Tekken, or alternate costumes like with the Street Fighter Collector's Edition. So that's how the 3 are going to be set up, and we're actually going to split them into genres for mediums. So today is part 1, and we're going to be talking about the story aspects of the games. And then the next video, we're going to go into the battle mechanics, and the video after that, we are going to go into the gimmicks and the online experience. Now I'm going to be not changing clothes this whole time, because I'm going to be shooting this in one shot. So if this turns out to be like an hour-long video, that's why it's going to get cut up into 3 different parts, okay? So with that being said, let's just jump right into it. So when it comes to story mode, we have our 4 contenders, again, which I'm going to talk about. So let's put them head to head. As far as story goes, I think Mortal Kombat probably has the best experience. Mortal Kombat 11, they really stepped their game up with 9, 10, and 11 with like their cinematic story and how it like evolves over time, and just like the beautiful cinematics and graphics of that game, which I guess we could put like visuals into this category as well. I think Mortal Kombat does a really good job. If I'm going to go in order, so second place, Mortal Kombat takes the cake for me for story. I think second place is probably Soul Calibur 6, and that's based on the fact that we have everything to go along with it. So it's not just the story itself. We also have the Soul Chronicles that go into that, and the Libra of Soul mode that all adds into that. So all of that together really lends to the story building an awesome world, one that we can all really get into and get behind. If I'm going to go after that, it'd probably be... see, this one's a little bit harder. Street Fighter's kind of feels tacked on, so I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say Street Fighter story is probably the worst out of this bunch. This is also why we're not including games like Virtua Fighter and stuff, who's been stuck in the same game for like the past 20 years. But I think that Street Fighter probably has the worst experience when it comes to story, just because it wasn't there at the launch. It's tacked on. It's okay. It feels like a glorified arcade mode, to be honest. But I don't hate it, but it's definitely, out of these, I think it's the worst experience you can possibly have. After Soul Calibur, I think Tekken probably takes the cake, and then Dead or Alive. The only reason why I think Tekken is ahead of Dead or Alive in this aspect, because Dead or Alive is pretty cinematic as well, and 6 is just such a disappointment, so I'm going based off of 5. But I will talk about 6 a little bit, though, so because it's not fair to the others to like exclude like whatever versions of the games you think are better or worse. Tekken's is a little bit better just because the narration from the third-party perspective, talking about the stories going on. I used to hate it at first, but I kind of like it now, especially seeing how he's involved with all the characters. So it's nice seeing how like the Mishima Zaibatsu and like their war with like G Corporation and all that affects normal and regular people, like how we would be in this universe, because he's a stand-in for the audience, right, the narrator. So I think that lends credence to it. Plus, there's really cinematic moments, especially when it comes to like the boss battles and things of that nature. I think Tekken really does a good job with the story in that place as well. Dead or Alive is pretty good. Dead or Alive has always been pretty decent with story. It gets its point across. Dead or Alive gets a lot of flack for lacking in parts, but I think the worst part about Dead or Alive is probably its monetization practices, which will be probably in Part 3's video. So if I'm going to be ranking them based on story before I get into details of such, in my opinion, it goes Mortal Kombat 11 is number 1, Soul Calibur 6 is number 2, Tekken 7 is number 3, Dead or Alive is number 4, and Street Fighter 5 is last. So you may have a different experience than me with this. You may have a different opinion. This doesn't go into all the characters and stuff. That's going to be next. It's just how I feel the overall story conveys itself. I think that like Mortal Kombat does convey a lot, especially when it's like a trilogy from all 3 games, right? So it's kind of unfair to compete it against Soul Calibur 6, which is a reboot of the franchise. But I think it does well by there's lore hidden throughout the crypt mode and things of that nature. Plus, you got the arcade endings and all that. So I mean, I think that really does put it one over Soul Calibur, but not by much. So another part of the story, which is the most important part, is what? Characters, right? So this is going to be very opinionated because it's based on your experience with how the characters are, like how they interact with each other, what the aesthetics are. I know some people like things certain more than others. Some may be more iconic or ingrained in our heads more. So again, this is going to be based on my opinions, and I'll get into some details. I think each one of these videos is probably going to be about 20 minutes long, maybe less, but after editing, so we'll see. But let's take what I think is going to be the worst. We'll go from worst to best for this case in terms of characters and their like how they're shown. I think worst. This is going to cause so much drama, and I'm going to get so many dislikes. But again, this is just my opinion. I think worst out of all of them is man, I don't even know if I want to talk about this section because this is so like anecdotal. It's so like up to you. Alright, you know what? I'll split this into 2 parts. I'm going to tell you my favorites, and then I'm going to tell you where I think they're ranked overall. So, overall ranked, we'll start with that. I think the worst portrayal of characters and their aesthetics and their designs and all that stuff is probably going to be Street Fighter, which isn't worst for me as in my favorites. But this is just, I think, aesthetically, like, based on the characters and how they are how they interact with each other. Like, if this was an older Mortal Kombat game, it would probably be Mortal Kombat, but, like, the newer Mortal Kombat games are pretty good with aesthetics and pretty good with, like, character designs and details and stuff. Where some of the cooler characters in Street Fighter are represented in such a way, your base roster is closest to, like, its original conception, with just, like, you know, the martial arts guy, the alternate color martial arts guy, the evil army guy, the good cop girl, the you know what I mean? It's just, like, it's very generic when it comes to, like, their place within the universe. But Street Fighter has the one up on all the other games with this, because we have, like, so many Street Fighter anime and so many games to tell different stories. Especially, I loved Street Fighter Alpha. It was such a great movie. There's just, like, a lot to those characters, and I love them dearly, but all of these games I love and I play, so it doesn't mean that, like, any of them are bad. If I was going to say any of them are bad, it would be Virtua Fighter, because I think Virtua Fighter has the worst characters of any game, but we're not even going to talk about Virtua Fighter here, so we're literally just going to talk about the aesthetics of the characters and how I think their backgrounds are, okay? So the worst, in my opinion, out of the ones I've listed is Street Fighter. Next would probably be Dead or Alive. Dead or Alive has a lot of history. I love the Dead or Alive series. It's one of my favorite franchise. I probably think I've always played them since, like, the beginning. So, like, I have even the offshoot games, like the Extreme series and stuff. There's definitely a soft spot in my heart for, like, a lot of the characters, especially, like, Ain and, like, Ayane and Ryu Hayabusa, who has the added benefit of bringing over all of the Ninja Gaiden series characters, especially in, like, the latest iterations of the game. So I definitely think that when it comes to character design wise, we have a bunch of basic Kunoichi. We have, like, your standard like ninja character in Ryu, which he's changed a lot over time, so I don't even want to say standard, but aesthetically, like, a lot of the Kunoichi look the same, they look similar. Even other characters like Hitomi and like Helena and stuff, they're pretty generic. It's just like they are what they are kind of thing. So it's like Helena is like the rich girl whose parents, like, are rich, obviously, and she's the French girl, and Helena is, you know, half Japanese and half German, so she's going to take on the characteristics of that. And Mila is the MMA girl. I think they're more so caricatures of what their personalities should be. They're not as in depth, but it's also par for the course with games that have a large roster. So this is, again, just my opinion, but I think that is the next worst. So I don't even want to say worst. I just think out of this group, I think they're the least effective, with Street Fighter edging them out. Next in line for getting better is, man, this is so hard, it's probably Tekken. Tekken falls with the same problems that I believe that Street Fighter does, which, having such an old game with an old roster, a lot of the characters turn into caricatures and parodies of themselves, and a lot of it gets repeated over time. Like, everyone always complains that it's like the Mishima show, right? It's all about the Mishimas. Even when we had, like, Lars come in as, like, a new character, we're like, oh, Lars is awesome, who's this guy? And it's like, oh, he's a Mishima. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's a heavy focus on the Mishima Zaibatsu, which I don't mind, because all my mains are pretty much Mishima, except for, like, oh no, I guess you can even count, like, Li Chaolan as, like, a Mishima, even though he's not, because he's, like, the adopted son of Heihachi, so, like, you can still kind of consider him in that camp. The one thing I do like about the characters in this game that I've always said is that, like, all the characters that are from a certain region of the world, they all speak their own language. Like, Hwarong speaks Korean, Jin and Kazuya speak Japanese, Nina speaks English, Anna speaks English, you know what I mean? The list goes on. Like, they actually speak all their own languages, which is a really good aesthetic for the characters to have, and all the martial arts that they do have a basis in reality. They do get crazy, but, like, at least, like, they have a basis there, right? So I love Tekken. Tekken is probably the fighter I'm probably the best at. I might be better at Dead or Alive, edging out a little bit, but I love Tekken. I've always loved Tekken. Tekken's the only game that I attempted to play competitively, that being Tekken 5. Tekken Bowling will always have my heart. So I mean, like, the characters and aesthetics in there, they're by far definitely not bad. I just like them a little bit less than the next two, I would say. Now, the next one that is probably in number 2 spot is, for being the best number 2, I'd say, is probably Mortal Kombat 11. So Mortal Kombat 11 does a really good job at aesthetics with characters. They have a lot of good redesigns. Like I think like Fire God, Liu Kang is probably the best iteration we've ever seen of Liu Kang. The ninja all look great. I don't know, I just really like aesthetically how the characters are. Their personalities have grown way far away from like what they're originally intended to be, like generic and basic, and that's thanks to like the stories that like NetherRealm Studios has concocted around these characters. I think it's a really interactive story that shows a lot of personality and really makes you care about certain characters. I know some makes people hate certain characters too, the way they're portrayed. So I think it does a really good way at driving the narrative by pushing these characters and their archetypes. So that's why it's in the number 2 spot. Those of you that know me are probably not going to be surprised by my number 1 selection when it comes to characters and aesthetics, and that is Soul Calibur. So clearly, this might even be objective. I don't even know if this is like going to be opposed by anybody really, but Soul Calibur does a really good job with character designs and aesthetics. This has proven none more than another when they brought back Hwang Sung-young, and he's so much more aesthetically awesome than he used to be, and differentiated so much in case they want to bring back Hong Yoon-sung in the next game. He's going to be greatly differentiated from his former replacement. So I actually really like a lot of these characters. They have a lot of good backstory, and that's thanks to all the lore that like Project Soul has put into this game. I mean, we got awesome characters with cool designs such as like Taki, Siegfried, Nightmare, Maxi, Xianghua, Sungmina, the list just goes on and on. Tira, Cervantes. Every single character feels different. They feel unique. They have a long backstory and personality behind them. Hell, I have an entire playlist of lore from these characters on my channel because there's so much lore baked in and packed in, whether it be from the old timeline or this new concurrent timeline that started from Soul Calibur 6. So I don't know, man. I honestly think that Soul Calibur probably has the best aesthetics for characters, with none close to Mortal Kombat. But this is a battle about story for the first one, so if we're going to include story and characters all together, Mortal Kombat took the cake for story, but Soul Calibur took the cake for characters and their aesthetics. If I'm going to be as unbiased as I possibly can be, I think Mortal Kombat takes the cake for this. I think Mortal Kombat beats Soul Calibur overall when it comes to story and characters, not just because of these characters and their designs and everything I talked about, but it takes the cake for other reasons as well. As much of a Soul Calibur stan as like I want to be, Soul Calibur 5 really dropped the plot for me. Soul Calibur 4 didn't do things as much as I thought. I've talked about these in a lot of videos in my last live stream about why every game's had a different vision, and the inconsistency has been like really rampant. It's not been consistent at all. Mortal Kombat's been more consistent. I mean, we had Mortal Kombat 1 through 3. We had the 3D era up to Armageddon that had like a whole new story, and like now we got the new generation. And these stories are all cohesive. They fit together. They tell a good story. The characters within them are very robust and well thought out and designed. So as much as it pains me to say that out of all the fighting games, the best one that wins in the story area, I think is Mortal Kombat. Sorry, Soul Calibur, you come in a close second. I do love all these games dearly, and I do want to know what you think in the comment section down below. I really do. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this particular video to a close. This is going to be part 1, so part 2, again, is going to be based on mechanics, and we are going to go into that on the next video. So if this is Monday's video, then the next video is probably going to be Wednesday, and the video after that is going to be Friday. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Please join the Discord. We can talk about it more there, and I'll catch you in the next video.